We are about 1 week away from the Miami Dolphins kicking off their 2025 season in Indianapolis. And on today's show, I'm going to go position group through position group, give my thoughts, and grade the spot in the depth chart for each position group. This is Nic Rohloff. I am Dolphins Today. I said that in reverse. Hopefully, I keep you on your toes. We'll start at quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa, Zach Wilson, and Quinn Ewers are the three QBs on the current 53-man roster. This is no surprise, obviously. Miami gave Wilson a decent one-year contract in free agency, drafted Ewers. He looked really good in camp at times and solid in the preseason. So you always knew the Dolphins were going to keep him. I give this group about a B grade. Obviously, when you're talking quarterback, it's more or less going to be how the QB1 is. And that's where I grade Tua right now. I give him a B. Now, I think Tua has a lot of good things going for him. A lot of things that doesn't go good for him as well. Obviously, injury concern. Obviously, lack of arm strength. But the truth is, this quarterback group is better than it was last year because I will still take Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers over the Tim Boyle, Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley experience you had 1 year ago. So it's an upgraded QB room from a season ago. Let's hope Tua can play 17 and ball out for Miami this year. Go follow us over on Instagram at Dolphins Today. IG is the handle. We're 49 followers away from 1,100. We talk more Dolphins football over there. We have posts. We have short form content. We got a lot of stuff. So go give us a follow right now. The Dolphins running back depth chart looks like this right now. And I will say I will likely shift Ollie Gordon up to RB2 with Jaylen Wright being banged up. And Ollie Gordon just might be RB2 for the rest of the season regardless. Achane should be ready to roll week 1 against the Colts. At least that's what Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel said, dealing with that calf injury. Alec Ingold, obviously that fullback special for the Dolphins that Mike McDaniel absolutely love. I give it a B+. And you know that before the preseason and training camp started, I said that the running back room for Miami might be the best position group that they have because I love the depth of Achane, Gordon, Wright, and Madison. But Wright getting banged up, Alexander Madison out for the year. You only have 2 backs that are healthy, and one of them really isn't that healthy to begin with, which is Achane. So him being banged up, Jaylen Wright missing a bunch of time in September, is why this grade is a little bit lower than what it was probably at the beginning of training camp. But I still feel very confident in the running backs for Miami this year. Moving over to the wide receivers. 6 wide receivers on the 53-man roster right now. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and Malik Washington. Dee Eskridge and Tahj Washington are the 2 depth pieces here. And guess what? I feel very good about this group. I think this is either the best or second best position group that the Dolphins have. I give it an A grade. You have, I think, probably the second best wide receiver duo in football. I won't really hear anything else. I know they had a down season a little bit last year, but the only wide receiver duo that I will confidently say is better than Miami's is the Bengals. Jamar and T. Higgins, yeah, no one's better than Waddle and Hill. I'll take Waddle and Hill over Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I will, because I think Tyreek's better than A.J. Brown, and I think that Jaylen Waddle is better than Devontae Smith, if we're going to be honest. So I love this group. The wide receiver room is so deep. I believe anybody could step in and contribute. I've talked in depth about how I think Malik Washington is in for a big role for Miami this year. I love what Nick Westbrook-Ikhine brings to the table in terms of his blocking and physicality and ability to impact the Dolphins' red zone offense. And then Tahj Washington and Dee Eskridge both had excellent preseasons, so I'm very excited to see what those 2 can bring to the table as well. What a great group of 6 wide receivers Miami has. Let me know what your best position group is on the Miami Dolphins. Is it a wide receiver? Is it a running back? Is it the edge group? Let me know what your best position group is for the Dolphins in 2025. Moving on to tight end, Darren Waller, Julian Hill are your 2 starters with Tanner Conner as that tight end 3. This is, spoiler alert, the lowest graded roster position group that I have. I give the tight ends a D. I think it's absolutely abysmal. I don't really trust Darren Waller to contribute that much. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that I have to eat crow and put a sock in my mouth in the middle of the season because Darren Waller's on track to have 600, 700 yards and is a threat in the red zone offense for Miami. But I don't have confidence in Julian Hill. Tanner Conner is not really anything special. And Darren Waller hasn't played real football since 2023. I think it's without a question the worst position group the Dolphins have. Final group that we'll talk about on the offensive line here. Patrick Paul, Jonas Avinaya, Aaron Brewer, James Daniels, and Austin Jackson are your starters. Kendall Lamb was added this week to create 4 depth pieces. Borum, Lamb, Keon Smith, and Daniel Brunskill. I give it a C+. I can't get to the B's. I can't do it. I want to, but I'm a little bit concerned of the depth. And even though Kendall Lamb returns, and I like that a lot, I still don't feel overwhelmingly excited about it. So that's why I give it a C+. I think the starting group is like a B, B-, but you also have to factor in we got a little bit of an unknown at left side of the floor with Patrick Paul and Jonas Avinaya. So we'll see what happens there, but I think a C+ grade is fine. There's a chance this gets elevated throughout the year, but they got to stay healthy, folks. All right, we're going to talk about Prize Picks now, the sponsor on today's show, the daily fantasy sports app I play every single day. And with college football here, I am so fired up. And you got professional football getting underway next week as well, where you can get in on the action for Saquon, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I know, but he does go more a lot, folks. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You get picks right. You cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've got an entry in for the first weekend of college football. Less than Haynes King passing yards, less than Arch Manning passing touchdowns, and more than Deshaun Bishop rushing yards. You can make it a power play where you got to get all 3 right. You can do a flex play where you got to go 2 or 3. Flex play, you can miss a pick and still double your money. How about that, sports fans? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's move over to the defensive line depth chart where Zach Sealer and Benito Jones are your 2 projected starters. Kenneth Grant, the rookie first-round pick, is that D3. And then the 5th-round rookie out of Maryland, Jordan Phillips, is your D4, with Matthew Butler, the veteran, and the 7th-round rookie Zeke Biggers being the final 2 pieces of this defensive line depth chart. And I think it's an A-. I am very high on this group. One, you have the most underrated defensive lineman, I think, in the National Football League in Zach Sealer. And we know in Miami how good he is, but I don't think the rest of the NFL does. Benito Jones is a solid nose tackle who played really well for Miami last season. And then what we've seen from Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips in the preseason and in the training camp practices, I'm very bullish on these 2 being impact players for the Fins right away. So when you add these 2 youthful, hard-nosed, athletic, versatile defensive linemen to Benito Jones and Zach Sealer, I think it's a really good group. I'm fired up for these guys to get after it this year. Move over to the edge department now where you got Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, with Matthew Judon as that 4th edge and Cameron Good is the 5th edge. Good will likely be inactive every week, I feel, as if everyone is healthy. He'll be inactive / a special teams guy. I give it an A+, though, because the way I was scaling these grades is how would I feel about them in terms of 1 through 10. And I thought number 1 for the Miami Dolphins was edge without a question. I think it's an A+. And then you know what? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think the 5 edges Miami has is the best group of edges in the entire National Football League. They just have to stay healthy. Find me a better quartet of edge rushers than Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, Matthew Judon, Bradley Chubb. I just don't think you can. Cam Good's a throwaway. Those front 4 are so elite. I'm excited to watch them work and get after opposing quarterbacks every single week. Best position groups for the Dolphins. I'm giving it an A+. Fill in the blank. Dolphins have the blank best pass rush in the NFL. Get down in the comment section and let me know your thoughts right now. Moving over to the linebackers, Jordan Brooks and Tyrel Dodson are probably your two starters. KJ Brett and Willie Gay Jr. are your two backups. Miami only keeping 4 linebackers. They've usually kept 5, but feel very good about these 4 right now. You know what? I feel very good about these 4. I'll give it an A-, very similar to the grade that I gave the defensive line room. I mean, I think that Jordan Brooks is one of the most underrated linebackers in football. Tyrel Dodson was solid down the stretch last year. Willie Gay Jr. has been a menace in practices and in the preseason games. And KJ Britt's a thumper you can put in and have him get rolling in the red zone or short yardage situations. I think it's a great and deep room, and hopefully there's no injuries there. But even if you have one injury, any 3 of those guys are capable of starting any game. Moving over to their secondary, starting with cornerbacks, completely new look room here with Storm Duck, Jack Jones, and Jason Marshall Jr. being your starters. Rasul Douglas was signed this week as your CB4. Juju Brents claimed off waivers, CB5, with Ethan Bonner as your CB6. I give it a C-. It's just still the second worst position group Miami has. Like, tight end and corners are the 2 worst without a question. And I do want to say this, though, without being too negative, I do think that the cornerback room is improved. The addition of Rasul Douglas and Juju Brents raised this grade significantly. Just last week, before roster cutdown day, I probably would have graded the cornerback room at like a D with the tight end room. But with Douglas coming around, with Juju Brents coming around, I feel a little bit better of it. So it goes from a D to a C-. Still the second worst group on the roster, if you ask me, but not as worse and bad as it was. Final position group we're grading today, the safety room, where it's Minkah Fitzpatrick and Ashton Davis as your probable 2 starters when everybody's fully healthy, but you'll likely see Ifeatu Melifonwu start in week 1 with Davis still being a bit banged up. And I do like the depth Miami has here. Melifonwu, Davis, Elijah Campbell, really good rotational guys to move with and behind Minkah Fitzpatrick. Give it a B-. So not high, not low. A lot of question marks because you don't know how impactful Melifonwu and Davis can ultimately be, but I do still feel pretty solid about it in general, and that is the final group that we take a look at here. So I'm going to give you my final and total Dolphins roster grade, but let me know yours right now. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. My overall Dolphins grade is a B-. You saw a lot of good things that quarterback, at wide receiver, edge, D-line, linebacker. But with those deficiencies at tight end, at cornerback, the offensive line question marks, I think B- is a fair grade. It's also a grade that tells me, hey, this team stays healthy. They can absolutely fight and make a playoff spot. But it also, with a couple injuries, could go really, really south, and they're going to be 6-11 picking inside the top 10 this year. Like, I hate to be that guy, but the Dolphins could be very volatile. They can either, if everything goes right, 10 to 12 wins and in the playoffs. A couple things go wrong, they could be picking in the top 10 and winning 6 games. Either way, we'll be here for it all, so hit that sub button, lock us in here for the entire season of Miami Dolphins football, because we'll be live for every game and videos in between each week as well. So subscribe, and hopefully see you this season.